All right. So the United States 0, Bosnia. No, I'm sorry. The United States 1, Bosnia 0. I almost forgot we scored a late winner in a very disappointing, mediocre end to 2021. Tack, how you feeling?
Bored.
Bored out of
Bored.
your mind.
No,
Same.
look. The result itself doesn't matter. We probably would have drew. Some people told me Cole Bassett was offside. That wasn't able to check that. I'm just disappointed with how things went today. We didn't. We'll talk about it in more details, but how the team looked. To
Performance. Performance was
performance.
poor.
Well, even as a team, right? The whole Berhalter system. People that keep saying it, we didn't see any of that. We didn't really see as many minutes of a lot of the players we should have, and the little bit we did, it seemed like it was enough to get the win. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, look, we'll go over the usual where we talk about the positives and the negatives. And, I put this on Twitter, and I think that kind of sums up what how I'm feeling right now. And I'm just going to read what I tweeted. I said, what a waste of a game. We had a chance to really look at some of the young, high ceiling talent. Jogo, Clark, Booth, Che, Bassett, etc. But instead, we give the lion's share of minutes to the same mediocre retreads who've had endless opportunities and not impressed. I mean, it just feels like the same thing over and over again. Like, let's give them more opportunities, even though they've never shown that they deserve them. Oh, let's give them some more opportunities. I'm just like, oh my God, when do we learn that these guys don't have what it takes to play at any level? This isn't even CONCACAF level, Tack. This is Bosnia's C team playing with 10 men for most of the game. And I don't think there's a single player on that field who really impressed me. Not one.
Let's add more context to what you just said. In the United States, with 2 weeks of preparation.
Exactly. Exactly. And just the same awful, slow, lack of creativity, skill, incisiveness for most of that second half until Jonathan Gomez came on and shot on target. We didn't have a single shot on goal or otherwise. No shots, right? So it was just the same old thing. And this is why we keep talking about these players that shouldn't be involved with the team anymore.
Pete, I just want to, so we don't go on with this on the stream, even though some people might arrive late. We got to stop saying this was our D team because, yeah, technically it was, but let's remember a couple of things here. Matt Turner, that's B team goalkeeper. All right. Zimmerman is a starter for Greg Berhalter, so that's an A team player.
Yeah.
Bello's a B or C team player from Greg Berhalter. He's the second or third option. Acosta is a second option. That's a B team player.
He often
Roldan
starts
is a bench player for the A team, so he's a B team player as well. Zardes
is one of his favorites. Plays regularly, yeah.
Pepi's a starter. Morris might be a backup player, like a sub player of the A team for Greg Berhalter. So for Greg Berhalter's call-ups, this is not a D team.
No,
it isn't.
No, and these are the guys we are saying shouldn't be there. Like most of these guys are what we've said all year long, and they keep proving us right over and over again. Chad Van Brunt, nothing to learn from this game other than Triple G has no clue how to play offense. It's the same reason he got fired in Sweden in 2013. Well, exactly right, Chad. Especially in that second half, what we saw was passing it around the midfield in little straight lines, back and forth, back and forth. And then eventually we would just lump the ball long over the back line and hope that a winger would chase it down. Just, so disheartening. But before we dig into all the issues and problems, but which there were plenty, let's talk about the positives. I'm struggling, man. I'm struggling to think about positives. Do you have
Greg's shoes?
Greg's shoes. I didn't even see his shoes. Did you see his shoes?
Yeah, I saw it after with another bounce pass.
Oh, yeah, the bounce pass. A great bounce pass from Greg. No, I mean, the fact that Jonathan Gomez comes on for pity minutes, let's be honest, they were pity minutes. 6 minutes is not, we're going to have a look at you and give you an opportunity, right? That doesn't exist. 6 minutes is pity minutes. The game is over. Might as well throw you on. Comes on and gets a decent shot off on goal, something the entire team failed to do in the entire second half. And then it becomes a goal with another young player. And by the way, the cross that came in, original cross was from Brian Reynolds, another young player. The only guy who wasn't a young player who was involved in that goal was Jassi Zardes, who basically passed the loose ball to Jonathan Gomez. But I mean, come on, why is Jonathan Gomez what I heard from Greg was that he was not physically mature enough for this game before all this happened. Greg said those words. He's still maturing physically. Do you need to be physically mature to take that shot when he takes it?
Well, he also bodied people
He
normally.
bodied the guy to lose the ball. That's how it
Yeah.
dropped to Zardes, because the physically immature Jonathan Gomez bodied him. Meanwhile, what did Bello do all game long
He
with all
fell
his
a lot.
physical maturity?
Yeah, it's also about, so again, when it's a game that matters in the sense of a World Cup qualifying, Gold Cup, whatever, when there's a title at stake or something, yes, the coach should use his judgment of whoever he thinks is better for that specific time, right?
Sure.
Whether we agree with it or not, it
Right.
would be reasonable for Greg to say, hey, he outplayed him in camp, so I'm going to have to go with him because I need this win. This was a game that what mattered more than the win was seeing building chemistry between some of the young guys, getting to see how they perform together, getting them accustomed to playing with each other, and giving a look and also almost like spoiling certain players like Jonathan Gomez because he's a dual national that we could lose. So you want to spoil some of these guys and keep them involved. Um,
I don't even
even
think
though
it would be spoiling him at this point. To me, he's already better than Bello.
that's why I did spoiling.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
so let's get back to the positives. I want to talk a little bit about Jordan Morris, I guess. I thought he tired in the second half, which I guess is understandable. I mean, Jordan Morris hasn't played 90 minutes in, a year. So I thought he was okay in the first half. Look, Jordan Morris is the same guy I think he's always been. He's not a high skilled player, but at least he's explosive. If there's space to run into in a foot race, Jordan Morris is going to win it. Technically, he's made some improvements in MLS with Seattle. He's still not a great technical player. He was one of the better players on the night, I thought. Him and Walker Zimmerman. Outside of that, did anybody really stand out to you?
no,
Did anybody
um,
show you anything?
no,
No.
no one
That
really
was like,
showed. Uh, Morris, I think Morris. I want to talk about Morris a little bit. The positive of Morris is he's very one dimensional. We
yeah,
know what he's going to do every time. But the positive of Morris is if Greg chooses him to replace Ariola in the roster, even though I think we have options ahead, but we know Greg has this attachment to those two and he picks one of two. I think us having Morris is an upgrade from Paul Ariola, a player that offers much more dangerous up top. And we saw that today, right? I don't think Ariola would have had those plays that Morris had. But yeah, again, he needs to obviously pick up his game, and he kind of looks the same from prior to the ACL injury too.
yeah, yeah. William Specht Casper says, I have seen more entertaining FC Cincinnati games. I'm with you, William. Was that worse than Panama? I know it's different stakes, obviously. But in terms of quality of play, I think that was worse than Panama.
It
No,
was
that's
a
not fair because at least we had shots on goal, which we didn't have against Panama. So,
Yeah, it's also a weaker opponent in at home, so the performance was probably worse than the Panama. Like if we played like this against Panama, we probably would have
we would have
lost three
lost
zero.
4-0. Yeah,
Yeah, we
exactly.
probably would have lost. So it was probably worse than the Panama one, but the circumstances around it were easier on the team.
Yeah, exactly. Just Alex. Jogo bodied the guy who bodied Bello all game. I know. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that we started Bello over Jonathan Gomez. I can't. I can't with Greg. Are there any other positives we should be talking about? I guess Jonathan Gomez is cap tied. He's not cap tied, but now in order to play for Mexico, he would have to file a one-time switch. Is that correct? Or is that not
I
true?
I don't think so. I think the only scenario that happens is what should I call it? If he plays an official youth tournament, then he has to file. I could be wrong. I'm not the FIFA encyclopedia here, but from what I remember is when a player plays a youth tournament, an official one, right? Not the Revelations Cup, an official one, he needs a one-time switch. When it's a friendly like this, it doesn't really matter.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope he's
But I
not
could be wrong. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that.
let's hope he's not sitting there going, my pity minutes, my pity minutes. I mean, I'm hoping at least the fact that he was involved in that goal will give him a good feeling. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look, I can contribute. I hope. I hope, you know,
It was a good
because,
experience for him, right? So he might feel good about it.
yeah, at least, but if he hadn't gotten that assist, I guess, or goal involvement, I mean, would he have just felt like, what are these pity minutes? I'm better than Bello. I mean, I don't know. It's discouraging. The use of Roldan and Acosta as dual eights. When I saw that, I knew we weren't. Remember, I said it in your stream before the game. We're not going to be creating that much through the midfield, which of course we didn't. Any surprises there?
No, and I the funny part of all of this is Roldan had a press conference before the game. I think it was yesterday, and what he said, he complimented Taylor Booth, saying he's very technical, very talented, but he said he still needs to learn the system. And
The
I even replied saying, "Wow, Roldan kind of sounds like Greg right now, right?
So
What
I've heard people
system?"
say in the past that you need these veterans there to teach the system. If you can't execute the system yourself, right? If you cannot effectively and consistently execute the system, why do we think that you would be able to teach it to anybody?
Yeah, it's pretty much like Roldan is that guy that's trying to teach you about business, but he never had his own company.
It's like
You
Michael
just
Scott.
yeah, Michael Scott. He like knows everything about companies. Like, you need to do this. That's what you do. That's how you run a company, man. This is how it's done. It's like, all right, dude, how many companies have you ran in your life? Oh, I never opened one. I work for it's
Yeah,
like, dude, why are
exactly.
you trying to teach us that? It's like you don't know. It's also like that guy that you go to the gym and then he's like, hey, this is how you lift. This is the training method. It's like, are you a personal trainer? Are you
Yeah.
have you learned anything about it? It's like, no, I just watch this YouTube video, man, and I lift things up and I put them down and
Or
there you
the
go.
scrawniest guy at the gym comes to you to give you lifting advice. That's always my
Yeah.
favorite. I'm like, okay, buddy. Walter Roman says, well, that's a pair of cojones Gomez has kicking that ball in that rebounded for the goal. You mean taking the shot? Or did he kick the rebound in?
I think he means just like of taking the shot,
Just
right?
taking the shot,
Yeah.
something that nobody else on the team did in the whole second half. Yeah, I mean, that was just sort of a whatever goal. I mean, the goalkeeper was not great on the rebound. He probably should have done better with it, but it was the third string keeper apparently from a Bosnian team or something like that. All right. Any other things that we should be discussing in terms of the performance or the players? What did you think about Johnny Cardoso?
Very average throughout the game for most of the time. In the beginning of the game, he looked good in distribution for the first 20 minutes. Actually had some good body work.
Yeah,
After that,
just
tried
disappeared.
tried some sloppy long balls that didn't really work. Some of them were okay. Sometimes Morris was ball watching, the ball didn't go to. Defense, there wasn't much to do, right, on defense. So it wasn't it wasn't a performance that stood out, which before the game, it's what I said. He needed a performance that would stand out. Now, is he
Yeah.
better than Jackson Yule? I actually have no doubt about that.
No.
But
No.
but but it wasn't a performance that stood out, which in my opinion, if you wanted to make a case to maybe be in 2022, this was the first step, right? Making a case there, and he didn't do it today.
Yeah. No, he didn't make his case, and this is why Acosta keeps getting minutes because but I mean, if Costa, of course, is held to a different standard, he can play like Johnny all the time, and people will say it's good, right?
Oh yeah.
So, like in other words, if Acosta had the performance that Johnny did consistently over the last year, which to be honest, he did, he looked mediocre in most of his games, and people were like, Acosta's still a good veteran, a good guy to have around. You need him in the pizza maker room.
What I think what we saw from Johnny that I think most can agree is at moments, some of the interceptions he had, some of the body work and distribute, you see that his soccer IQ is above some of those play like Roldan and Acosta. The technique is better. The thing is, it's very hard to judge him too because he's connecting the passes and nothing's happening after because there's no one to make it happen. He's not
Right.
really the guy to make it happen. Remember Tyler Adams, how sometimes he'll finish the game and people are like, he didn't do anything. It's like, no, he did a lot. It's
Yeah.
just that he's not the flashy guy. He's not the guy that will create. He's there holding his own, along with the opponent also. In the second half, because they were playing a very low block also, especially in the beginning, when Johnny was still in the field, and we had no one, like he's passing it to Roldan, and what is Roldan doing to Acosta?
Yeah. Well, also
Uh,
not just that, when Johnny had the ball, so many times, both Acosta and Roldan were very static. They would
mhm.
just sit there next to a guy who's marking them and not even try to move off, not try to show into space, not check back to the ball, not ask for it, not make a dummy run and then, change directions quickly to try to create some space. Not even at least drag the midfielder out with a run to the wide. Nothing, nothing. So there's very little you can do, which is why oftentimes we ended up going over the top.
Before we move on from Johnny, the last thing I think about him is he needs to lock in a starting job in Internacional. I think that
Yeah.
should be his next goal for the short and long term. That is what is important for him right now. In terms of national team, he's not getting called in for the January camp. In March, also because Greg already has his roster, he's not calling him in. So Johnny
No.
needs to focus on the club. He came in here. I think he caused a good impression in Greg because Greg did start him and kept him for a good amount of the game. And just to put in one of his favorite, right? He needed to give us Jackson Yule one more time in 2021. So Johnny had to come out for that. So
Why? What has Jackson Yule done to deserve that? This is why I don't understand. Like, it doesn't matter how you perform, some of these guys, you'll just keep getting chances, even though he was shit for the national team and shit for San Jose all year long. Why is he here? Meanwhile, in Europe, they're held to a standard of like, if you're not an absolute baller for a Champions League team, you're probably not as good as some of these MLS guys. I hate it. All right, let me answer a couple super chats here. Justin Clabor, Matt Turner tied for most clean sheets in a year for USMNT keeper, yelling at the TV to shoot all night. I'm confused. You wanted Matt Turner to shoot or somebody else to shoot at Matt Turner? Or our team to shoot on Bosnia's goal? Might need some clarification there, Justin. Tanner Tessman needs a call. James Sands. Now, there's somebody I think could replace Acosta. Somebody who could be a decent backup to play the 6. MDs who also need the call. Luca De La Torre, Christian Kappas, and Alan Sonora. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, but I've been saying this all year long, and I think Tack has been saying it too. We've seen enough of Roldan. Roldan should never be called up to the national team again. However, Greg does not agree with us. Greg keeps calling him in, keeps giving his minutes. Be thankful Ariola and Leggett weren't in this camp, or they would have seen the lion's share of minutes today as well. And it just, I don't want to keep repeating the same thing, but it's just frustrating to see these guys do the same thing every time they get a chance. It's the exact same performance, and we never learn that, I don't know. It's frustrating, but I don't think I'm alone in that, in that assertion. Anybody else that you want to talk about? Either tactically, there wasn't much tactics, so I don't know how much there was to talk about, or any other performances that you'd like to address. I want to talk a little about Pepi because he was an issue today. He didn't play well. His movement was poor. His hold-up play, his touch, everything was poor. Now, for everybody who's screaming for Pepi, that Pepi is not good enough, can I just remind you, this guy has 7 goal involvements, okay, in 6 games, in crucial World Cup qualifiers. So before we try to move on from him, and yes, please tell me who you would replace him, because I'm seeing this on Twitter. Pepi, not good enough. Pepi should be off the team. We have to not be so overreactionary. I agree that Pepi didn't play well today, but he's 18 years old, 1. There will be some variance in performance. And 2, I have a feeling, I could be wrong, and this is just guesswork, but I have a feeling all the transfer talk has maybe distracted him a little bit. This can happen. This happens to players all the time. Their form drops when there's a lot of talk about a transfer. So maybe when his future gets decided, either he goes or he doesn't go, he'll be able to focus on his soccer again. Okay? That's what I think about Pepi.
Just try to, this is not a video game, right? This is a soccer player. And like anything we have in life, when we have something undecided, whatever it is, a problem at work or a problem with the family, you're not at your best, right? And these guys have to be at their best to perform. And Pepi's 18, right? He's not a 25 or 30-year-old that when something's going on, anxiety hits in and he has more self-control. So I think he's going through that. We've seen much better from Pepi. So I'm not overly worried about that now. It might be a short-term problem rather than a long-term problem.
I hope so. But my point is, like, we've seen Pepi do it when it mattered, so we shouldn't be overly critical of his performance in a friendly that ultimately didn't matter, right? If it wasn't for Pepi, we'd be 4th in the Ocho right now, maybe 5th. Let's just think about that. Chad.
But one thing though, Pete, if it wasn't for Pepi, maybe Greg wouldn't have a job right now. So is the villain?
Maybe. Triple G must have these guys scared. No one took risks. I will say it again. Greg cannot get the best out of his players. But Chad, I don't even know if it's that they were scared or if they just couldn't. Because oftentimes they tried to play incisive balls. It's not like they never tried. Both Acosta and Roldan tried to play through and above, but they don't have the skill or the quality to do it. So I think it's just a case of asking players to do something that they don't have the skill set to do. And we've seen this with Berhalter before, believing that his tactics are so fantastic that it doesn't matter the skill level of the player. Anybody can execute his tactics and they will work regardless. So I don't know if it's, I mean, I think there's fear of a little bit of fear there, but maybe it's a knowledge that they can't play. Like they know these, I'm sure these guys know they don't have the confidence to take the ball in midfield, turn under pressure, drive at the defense, and play a nice through ball the way a Musa or a Reina or a McKennie can, or even a Luca de la Torre. I don't know. It's just, I to your point, there's a part of me that wonders if Greg does over instruction sometimes, where he's like tells them too much joysticking of this is what you do in this situation and this is what you do in this situation, that it creates kind of a mental paralysis. I don't know. That is a guess. I've heard this from people who say that Greg is a very like tactics PowerPoint nerd, if that makes sense.
I actually one thing I tend to think Greg does is I think Greg instructs players on the ball, right? Usually you don't want to give players instructions on the ball. You want more instructions off the ball, defensive shape, how to press, how to position yourselves on the build-up. On the ball, you got to allow the players to use their instincts, essentially, right? Be soccer players. Because if you give them too many instructions, they're going to think for a second or two. And at that level, that 1 or 2 seconds is enough to screw you over. So
yeah, it creates a tentativeness and a lack of confidence. You don't play in flow. S27, Greg isn't the guy to help us win the 2026 World Cup. I'm with you, man. I don't want Greg past Qatar, honestly. I really don't. But the question is who else we get, and there are plenty of good options. We can discuss that later. But yeah, I agree with you. Wow, AR, that's just very generous of you. Thank you.
you're going to give me a Christmas gift this year.
Well, I'm going to see you in like 3 weeks. By the way, if anybody missed it, Tack and I are going to be at the U.S. Soccer Coaches Convention in Kansas City in January. So anybody in Kansas, come say hi. Tired of him wasting resources. Thank you, AR. This is very generous. And tired of his apologists downplaying why it matters. Thank you. They don't get you get judged on depth player selection because guys like Wes Pulley Adams are obvious. It delays development for the pool in ways that come back to bite you. Panama, 100%. 100%, AR. I agree with everything you have said there. Too many quality players have been left off for too many of Greg's.
Agree.
Huh?
I said you better agree. He donated $100. If you disagree,
I would still disagree if I disagreed. No, but it's 100% true. And I think this is something everybody knows at this point. You know, this is obvious to most rational thinking soccer fans. There are a few delusional ones out there who, I mean, you can't help them. So you just kind of go, okay. But yeah, like that's been a huge problem. It's especially frustrating. I was saying to Tack on the stream because recently we started to see Greg be a little better with his player selection, right? In the last window, we didn't see Leggett. We didn't see Roldan. Admittedly, the roster was not great, and that hurt us against Jamaica. But against Mexico, he got the lineup right. You know, I was hoping maybe Greg was finally moving away from these guys, but it doesn't feel like that. And we had so many young guys who we could have seen today that just didn't get that opportunity, you know. Tack, any other thoughts on tonight? Any other players you want to talk about? Any other issues you want to bring up?
I mean, Jesus Ferreira, again, I think he's a player that has potential to fight for a spot in the U.S. men's national team. But the main problem with it is if you're going to bring him in, you got to play him on where he's at his best. And
well, where was he good for Dallas this year?
The 10.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is Greg doesn't really play with 10s, right? He never has. He plays with wingers. He plays with dual 8s, 6s. We don't see him play with 10s. So again, it goes back to some players he tries to force in his system, right? Jesus Ferreira. And you end up burning them because he's not playing in his natural position. And then he looks very poor like he did today. And I'm not making excuses for him because I also don't rate him super highly. But I'm just trying to explain that could be one of the reasons why he looks so uncomfortable where he was playing, while in the season he looked pretty comfortable with Dallas.
Yeah. You play him where he looked so good, not in the position that you think he should play. And this is after playing him as a 9 in World Cup qualifying, and now all of a sudden he's a winger. Neither of those places are where he's been playing for Dallas. I'm going to read this one super chat, and then Tack, you wanted to talk about something, which you told me to remind you. Walter Roman says, game was hard to watch. Needed more line-breaking passes to the final third. Correct, Walter. Need players who can make line-breaking passes. We didn't have that, right? Morris should have used his foot and not his head, Palomita. Yes, I agree with you on that shot. He probably should have volleyed it. But, Tack, do you want to highlight the January camp and what's happening next? Because we want to look forward, guys. 2022 is going to be a very exciting year for us, right? There's a lot happening. Hopefully, we're going to qualify for the World Cup. I think we will. What are your thoughts, Tack, going into January?
So before we talk about the calendar thing that I want to talk about in January, so we're talking about the overall year that you mean?
Well, no, the calendar in January, because that's the first part. Like, we want to look forward. What's next now after, this camp?
Okay, so in January, I think 6th or 7th, the MLS guys are going to get together because they're off season, and they'll start their camp with Greg. They'll have some friendlies or scrimmages with whatever clubs in whatever location they're at. I don't know where it's going to be, the camp. Maybe it'll be even here in Orlando. I don't know. Sometimes they do this here, but what does that mean? That means those players will be with Greg roughly 20 days before the first game versus El Salvador on the 27th. All right. The Americans abroad will probably arrive around the 23rd, 24th. So 3 games before that game. So what I was telling Pete, and we don't know if this is going to happen, right? We might see against El Salvador this team. Right, these players
do this to me.
No, I think El Salvador. I'm just speculating, and I could be wrong. I think
trying to ruin my holidays.
Yeah, I'm Christmas, bro. Everyone's New Year. So against El Salvador on the 27th, I think Greg will play the MLS guys. I think he's going to play them with the guys on the bench to come in, so he gets everyone else ready for Canada the other 2 games.
Even after this performance,
I mean, is he not stubborn?
So let me say this: who do you think he's going to start in the midfield for that game?
For that game, I think Acosta might go at the 6, depending on how Tyler and Weston are. Depends if they play over the weekend, how the schedule is with the other players. We got to wait on that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he went with the midfield with maybe like Acosta, Leggett, and then maybe Weston next to them, because Weston has been able to play many games. He played 3 games in camp. I'm saying that game is going to be an MLS heavy starting 11 for that game I think for that game, that's going to happen. And then against Canada, he'll probably put our best. And if we play our best, I think Canada is a beatable opponent. And then he'll probably play our best against Honduras as well. That's just what I think he's going to do, because he's going to have those 20 days with those guys, and he will rotate. He will rotate, Pete. We're 100% sure. And the guys are going to arrive 3 days before. And I don't know, man. I'm just saying one thing, guys. Don't underestimate Greg. He could very well do that. I just don't want anyone to be surprised when that happens.
Should we talk a little bit about playing El Salvador in Columbus and Honduras in Minnesota in February, since we're talking about January?
Yeah.
Why did U.S. Soccer decide that we needed to play in Minnesota against Honduras, where it could easily be minus 20 degrees, easily in Minnesota in February? Why? I don't know. The reasons that Greg gave were to try to establish a home crowd. Really, what that means is, where are there lots of white people? Because brown people might support the other team. Like, I'm sorry, that's how that reads to me. And I'm not a dual national. I'm not a Hispanic American, but we have so many like Mexican American, Hispanic American, Latino fans. I don't understand why we insist that we have to put it in the Midwest or in a city where there's fewer Latinos, because we're worried they might support the other team. The other thing that the other reason that he gave was that we wanted to be closer to Canada. Do you know how far Hamilton, Ontario is from Minnesota? It's like a 4-hour flight. Like, North Carolina is closer to Hamilton, Ontario than Minnesota is. So I'm not buying that at all. Why are we putting it in a frozen ice box when we're trying to play against the worst team in the Ocho? when we're the team that wants to play soccer, right? We want to have the ball. We want to use the ball to unbalance opponents, all of that. Any ideas? Any ideas here?
I don't know. I don't really try to find their logic to where they're gonna play, why they pick each game. Uh, I personally would not pick it to a freezing weather like he did, especially Minneapolis. Again, you also want to involve more of the country, right? We already played a game in Columbus, so we already got that city involved with the national team. You want to maybe play somewhere else, get other fans involved, included in this, from different regions of the country, right? Because not everyone can travel to go to a game. Actually, the way they put the tickets, not everyone can afford the tickets as well. I'd much rather us have in bigger games and try to pack the stadium, which I'm sure eventually we can. Maybe we could have if they've done a better job throughout the years as well, because it is quite interesting that soccer attendance is down from the 90s. It's something, a question, it's something to ask, right?
Yeah.
But anyhow, I don't know why they didn't pick it. A few years back, before Cuba, we played Panama here in Orlando, for example, and the only reason we played in Orlando, in my opinion, is the sum agreement with USSF, which they're never going to confirm this. They're always going to deny it, but they love to promote new MLS stadiums. That's why we played at Q2 Stadium in Austin, Texas, this World Cup qualifying. The new Columbus Stadium, which we're playing again, by the way. And ironically
Minnesota
enough,
is a new stadium. Cincinnati.
it is Minnesota.
Minnesota, they
Yeah,
just 5 years, not 4 years ago. It's like
yeah.
they're a new team.
It's the first World Cup qualifying game for this stadium in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're
Cincinnati,
trying to. They're,
Columbus, Austin, Minnesota, Nashville. They're all the
so
new MLS teams.
they always love to promote these new stadiums, which it's okay. But for example, Columbus, which is a little iffy to me, it's Greg's club, right? Columbus Crew, or at least that he coached, and we're playing the second game there. I don't know. I think for U.S. soccer, they should have been expanding that. And again, if we want to be taken seriously as a soccer nation and try it, when you are playing in your country, you shouldn't be worried about who attends the game. You should be
No.
secure enough that the home crowd is going to be your country because you're in
Yeah.
the United States. So it
Yeah.
should be Americans. But U.S. soccer has done such a shit job. Sorry for cursing your channel.
No, you're
Such a
fine.
crap
I said
job in growing soccer in the country. They've done such a bad job because they've managed to grow their profits from the 90s, but not the attendance, right, of the stadiums. That what happens to it is depending on where you play, it seems like the U.S. is playing away because they don't include fans from anywhere, right? There's a
Well,
bunch
it
of.
doesn't sound like you want fans. Like if you're saying we're going to put it in Minneapolis to ensure a home crowd, we're going to put it in Columbus to ensure a home crowd. What does that read to you? We're not putting it in Texas. We're not putting it in California. We're not putting it in Florida. We're not putting it in New York. All the diversity where there could be, God forbid, immigrants watching the game and, God forbid, supporting their home team that they, grew up in. What if those immigrants, those terrible, like, what if they came here and they saw a team that's playing good soccer, that has a couple of dual nationals, Hispanic Americans like them? What if they started to root for you? Would that be such a bad thing?
Yeah, my main concern is I think never the criteria should be if you're playing your country, the criteria never should be to have a home crowd, right? Wherever you play in your country would be a home crowd. So I don't know. I don't know how Minneapolis is. I don't know how any of these places are. I've never been there. My whole point is that shouldn't be a deciding factor. Now, in terms of geographical location, yeah, I'm pretty sure where they picked is, for example, closer than Orlando, right? It's going to be closer than Orlando, so you do have to pick based off flights. I I don't know, man.
So some people in the
I
chat are saying that Minneapolis is very diverse. I'm just telling you what they said. Like Greg literally said, one of the reasons they chose that venue was to ensure a home crowd. So if that's not the reason, you tell me what that means. Like somebody else tell me what that means. If that doesn't mean what I think it means, somebody else tell me, because I'll be open to being wrong. I know that Minneapolis is a diverse place, but then what else is he talking about? Just someone tell me.
I don't know. I just my main problem is I think the weather conditions won't benefit us, right? I know
Yes.
maybe Americans are probably more accustomed to the cold than someone from Honduras
Yeah.
in Central America because a lot of us grow up sometimes up north and we deal with the cold, and some of them play in Europe, which is also there's very cold. There are cold regions. I just don't think that the weather is going to benefit us also as well, playing in the cold. Because I know they also had this idea that putting Central America teams in the cold might affect them. Canada is one of the teams that did that against Mexico. I guess they won, but I don't think the weather was the main
Well,
reason. I think
also, when you're trying to play beautiful soccer, do you really want to be playing on in a cold environment? And don't isn't it more likely to get injuries in a cold environment because your muscles are not as warm? You're more likely to pull something. You're more likely to slip on the ice. Like I don't know if it benefits the way that we're trying to play as much. Like, why should we be scared? Why not play in a good conditions with a good quality field that's in good weather that allows us to play our game and imprint our style of play on the other team and be proactive and not be so scared of the 8th place team in the Ocho who we already beat 4-1 in Honduras. You know what I mean?
yeah, just back to what some people are saying in the chat, you want a home crowd. You want a home crowd, but the thing is, if you're playing the United States, having a home crowd should never be the problem. That's my concern.
Well, also, how does the advantages of having a home crowd compare to the disadvantages of having a frozen pitch, having terrible weather, having a greater likelihood for injuries, and being further away from the Canada game? Like, what are the supposed advantages there? We couldn't have found somewhere else that might also give us a home crowd. I just don't get it. But Scott has a question here. What center back pairing do you think Triple G rolls out for the first 2 games in next month's World Cup qualifier? Will he play Robinson and Zim? Will Richards get a start? Will Brooks even be on the roster? Would love your thoughts. Well, thank you, Scott. I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be Zimmerman and Robinson. I don't think that Greg rates Richards above either of those two, as we've seen many times. He started Zimmerman and Robinson against Mexico. Richards has been his third choice. And Brooks seems to be out of favor, at least for now. What are your thoughts, Tack?
So I'm gonna go by parts here. Will he play Robinson and Zimmerman? There's a lot of indications that yes, right? Robinson will probably be back in camp when the MLS guys come back, and he'll be fine. He'll train for 20 days. Zimmerman as well. Will Richards get a start? Out of the 3 games, I think we should probably see Chris Richards. I think Greg did play him last time. Will Brooks even be in the roster? I think John Brooks will not be in the roster. I think he won't. And again, Mark McKenzie has finally been playing for Genk. So if Greg brought him in when he wasn't playing, why would he not bring now that he's actually playing, right?
Yeah.
So what are the pairings we're going to see? I think Robinson and Zimmerman is very likely, and we might see the same as last camp, right? We might see some Miles Robinson and Zimmerman. We might see Richards with one of them as well, Richards or Zimmerman, Richards and Robinson. I still think the 2 starters for Greg are Zimmerman and Robinson. Those are his 2 favorites.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Dominican Stud, as a Latino/New Yorker, I can tell you that immigrant groups will overrun us like in Red Bull Arena and Texas. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind. Well, that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying it should bother everyone. I'm just asking questions about the logic. And for me, it doesn't matter as much who's in the stadium. If there are people who are supporting their home team, I see it as an opportunity to convert them. We beat Mexico in Colorado in a stadium that was 80% supporting Mexico, and we beat them. Shouldn't that tell us that what a great opportunity that was to convert Mexican American fans to supporting our national team? Like, I just don't get it. And again, compared to the other disadvantages that I listed, the travel, the cold weather, the potential for injury, I just don't see the marginal advantage of having a supposed home crowd might give you over some of those other disadvantages, if that makes sense. All right.
Can I just address one thing here?
Yeah.
So Reynolds is saying that Tact is being a hypocrite over this because he definitely supports the Yanks, but ask him who he's rooting for in a Brazil versus USA game. So a couple of things here about your question. One, Brazilian and the US will never play each other in World Cup qualifying. They never have because they're not in the same confederation. So it's a question that is just disingenuous because it doesn't happen, right? The second thing is I already responded to this question that I said that it depends on the scenario. If Brazil's already qualified to a World Cup in this made-up scenario that you just created because it won't happen, if Brazil's already qualified and the U.S. is not, I'm going to be in the stadium yelling for the United States. If Brazil needs to win and the U.S. already qualified, I'm going to be yelling for Brazil. if both are qualified, it doesn't matter who I'm rooting for. That's the whole point. So again, Matthew, specifically to you, you're touching a point in where my decision of which country I choose is just not of your damn business in the stadium. And the USSF should not make a decision based on what tactical manager should choose, right? So you don't call me a hypocrite for which country I choose in the stadium. It's absolutely ridiculous. And which country I'm loyal to. That is a joke of a comment, and you should be ashamed of it. That's all I have to say about your comment. It is absolutely ridiculous, and you should really be ashamed of that comment that you just made.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Tack on that.
It is situational, Matthew. It is situational. And if you don't have two countries that you love, you don't try to understand it. So you shut up and you listen. That's what you should do.
Well said. Well said. Okay, let's continue with these. MLS players shouldn't play in the Jan qualifiers. No, I disagree with that, S27. Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman will both be part of the rotation, and I think they should be. Ricardo Pepi may very well be an MLS player. Acosta will probably be in the roster, and I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't mind James Sands coming in. It's not about MLS players. It's about these mediocre players that Greg values so much that have proven over and over again that they don't perform when we need them to. It's more about that for me. TS with a great comment. Just got off the phone with the Catalan press. Apparently, it was Serginho Dest who started George Bello over Gomez, cited Bello's ATL United mentality. Oh, good stuff, guys. All right, we have Football Kings. Also, keep in mind, I know this because I saw Mexico play Canada away, obviously. Players can get injured in snow easier because the turf/grass is super hard. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, that's a big, and especially when we have guys who are injury prone. Gio Reyna, Christian Pulisic, other guys like that. Like, I don't see that this benefits us. David Jacobo, just like USSF does not take Mexican-American players seriously, they also don't take our people seriously. They just don't see us as a viable market, short-sighted. And David, I'm not a Latino. I'm not a Mexican-American. I'm not a Hispanic-American. I guess, Tack, are you technically Hispanic if you're Brazilian? Is that the same?
I think it's Latino there.
It's Latino?
Yeah, we don't speak Spanish too, right? I think Hispanic is when you came from like a Spanish heritage, right? And Brazil was Portuguese.
So you're Latino. Yeah. How do you feel? Like U.S. soccer, if U.S. soccer decides that you're a Brazil fan over a USA fan because of, where you're from originally, how do you feel? Because I've talked to Mexican-American fans or Latino fans who feel offended by the idea that they don't, want to put the game in California or Texas or Florida because they feel like they might support the other team.
I personally don't feel affected by it because I don't think they do it that way, right? I don't think they're trying to exclude me personally.
Right.
That's the way I see it, right? It doesn't mean they are or not. It's all opinions in terms of that. Now, I do think that USSF has done a poor job of growing soccer in the country, period, right? Regardless of if it's a Hispanic community, if it's a immigrant community, American community, I think they've just done a bad job with everyone in terms of growing the sport. It's something I even talked about with Wijnaldum, for example. I don't know if people know, we're going to have an interview with Wijnaldum, and I talked about this with him, and he agreed with a lot of it, right? He's much more outspoken than the media guys, and he lives through all of this, and he lived through all of it in the 90s and talks about it now. But in terms of that, I never cared about U.S. soccer, right? Because when the national team is playing, I don't think they're representing U.S. soccer. I see them as representing the United States, and I feel included in the United States, which is what matters to me.
Right.
Not U.S. soccer, what they do. I don't think they represent us, the country, what the country truly is.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When did you start supporting the U.S.?
So following and supporting a little bit, because we lived in the U.S. at 1999, and that's when my dad even bought that jersey. I have the old one.
Okay.
We started following, and we always cheered for Brazil, and we always loved the United States. So 1999, 2000. But when I started actually follow the U.S. men's national team was when I moved to the U.S. again, back, right? Because I went to Brazil. And you can't watch the United States men's national team in Brazil in the 2000s. I would only get to watch the U.S. in Confederations Cup when we played, and World Cup, which we used to never miss it in 2002 and 6 and 10. But 2010, I moved here, and the first game soccer game I watched in the United States when I moved. The first game that was happening, the day I landed in the United States, was Brazil versus the US, Neymar's debut. That was the first
Okay.
game.
Okay.
And then I watched it, and then I obviously was hyped that Neymar was coming up from Brazil. And then I started to follow the U.S. men's national team because I was here. And then I would go to like
So
play
you're
soccer
telling
in
me,
high
I'm
school.
sorry, can I just clarify? You went to a game to support
No,
Brazil.
no, I didn't go. I watched it on TV because I had
Okay.
just arrived.
So
I
you
just
watched a
landed.
game, but you didn't turn on the game to watch the US. You turned it on to watch Brazil.
Brazil,
And
yeah.
then that acquainted you with the US national team.
It got my interest to the U.S. men's national team at the
There you
time,
go.
and also I got some interest from the U.S. men's national team when they played Brazil in the Confederations Cup final. That game too, because we had the U.S. or I can say we got the 2-0 lead. Brazil came back, and I was just like looking, oh, maybe because we lived in the U.S. and it was always a joke in Brazil how U.S. was bad in soccer, right? And when I saw that game, it got my interest. And then I saw that other game. There was 2-0 Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. Neymar scored off a header. And then I started to follow the men's national team more. And then my dad took me to MLS games when I was 17, to New York Red Bulls more specifically. And then I just started to follow it more and more and more. And I was just like, it became also my national team as I lived here. The only problem was when we missed the World Cup after 2018, I did tune off for like a year or so, at least till Greg. When Greg took over, I tuned back on.
Right. You're like,
Unfortunately,
okay, let's see how this
unfortunately,
goes.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I
Hi,
did
Hartman.
tune back.
I'm a German American, and when Germany played US years ago, I rooted for Germany, but now I'd root for USA once I got more invested. I do think that is a point of entry for a lot of people. They go to watch their team, but they see the US. If they see something they like, something they can identify with, something that intrigues them, it can make them maybe not switch instantly during the game, but it's again a long-term thing of, oh wow, the US has a good team. Oh look, they have guys that I can relate to. They have a style that I like that I can
But
relate to.
the main reason I got very angry with Matthew's comment is it's not really about that, right? Because to me, there's two things. Right now in my life, I lived a little bit over half of my life in the US and a little bit less than half in Brazil. And I really don't choose one over another. And I don't have to because
Yeah.
I'm not a dual national. I don't have to pick a national team. And they barely face each other. So him asking, who would you cheer for? I said it many times. It really depends on the circumstances of these two countries.
Yeah.
If he can't understand that,
And that doesn't make you at all remotely hypocritical. Okay.
no,
It is
if
very
he can't,
personal choice who you
if he
support.
can't understand that, that's his problem. I saw him saying that he's Jamaican. So all I'm going to say to him is what I've always said on Twitter. You're just another fake news Jamaican. What I always say. I'm going to keep going with that. So, yeah,
I keep seeing this in the comments. Liam Lynch, Irish American who grew up in Ireland, and I also switched to USMNT after watching friendlies. This is a story as old as time, and I've heard this before. Walter Roman, this is for you. Brush it off, Tack. I'm Peruvian American and root for both teams. We have the privilege of doing so, and people will never understand. That is fair. That is very,
no,
very
and
fair.
also I sympathize with one thing, which I remember talking to Herc. I think it was in your interview.
Yeah.
One thing I don't understand, and this could be something to play for Matthew's side, which he said he's Jamaican as well. I didn't read all his comment, but I saw that he said he was Jamaican as well. Jamaica, Mexico, these countries face the U.S. with a lot of frequency in Gold Cup, in
Right.
qualifiers. I have the privilege of my country, not my other country, Brazil, not facing the U.S. in competitive games almost ever. It's very rare.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come up. That situation doesn't come up for me very often.
Yeah.
In World Cup, it never has in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't remember 94. That's the problem.
So, guys, I don't think these issues are very comfortable to talk about because they're sensitive issues, but I do think it matters because in terms of the game in this country, I still think we need to do a lot better job of bringing everybody, regardless of where they're from or what they look like or who they support, under the same tent of American soccer. I really believe that. I think we can do a better job. I think we've made some progress in that department, but I think we can do a much better job. And sometimes I do think it's uncomfortable to talk about because it's very sensitive and it's very personal. But I do think it does need to be discussed. And we're not going to do this every stream, but I'm glad we brought it up. Somebody said in the chat, the real hard hitting question is who does Tactical Dog support?
Tactical Dog is Brazilian.
He is Brazilian through and through.
He was born in Brazil. Yeah.
So he will not convert to becoming a U.S. fan if he goes to a U.S. game.
He'll probably sleep.
Like me. That was me on this game, Tack. I was watching this one, falling asleep. But Should
I
we go
think
on to? Yeah, go ahead.
no, I think one thing to say too about soccer in general, we all watch the game, and I'm sure all of you are very passionate, right? So when we're watching a game, how you feel attached to a team, it's just some feeling you describe at the moment, right? I was watching Palmeiras 2 or 3 weeks ago against Flamengo, and the feeling I was having during the game of being nervous, or the U.S. versus Mexico. Nations League was the one I remember being the most nervous, actually.
Mm.
Nations League, surprisingly. Because you know why I think? Because Nations League we hadn't played a competitive game against Mexico in so long. That one was so how someone feels. It's something that people need to learn to respect it and not call each other hypocrites when they say something. Because how someone feels about a team or a nation, I'm sorry, dude. It's not the way to go about it. That's all I'm saying. And I usually try to be joking about it, and that's what it is. But I think sometimes some of you, not some of you specifically, you know who already mentioned your name. You need to learn to respect people. Be nice. Learn to be
Yeah,
nice.
I agree with that. I very much agree with that. And let's remember the other thing, guys. Everybody, or at least the vast majority of the people in this chat, we all want the same thing. We all want a strong U.S. national team. We all want American soccer to grow. We all want us to perform well. We all want players playing at the highest level. And I think that's what we can focus on today. Should we get into the player ratings? Do you even want to do player ratings? We can do
I
it, but
I think it's going to be very negative
it
if we
is,
do it.
but I
Yeah.
mean, I still think we should do it. Like, and I'm going to do it based on who we were playing too. Like, this wasn't, a World Cup qualifier. This was Bosnia's C team with 10 men. So I'm going to be particularly harsh if you didn't perform well. So let's start with Matt Turner. I'm going to give him a 6. I don't think he did anything wrong at all. Well, I'll give him a 7, I guess, because he didn't have much to do, but when he had something to do, he was safe and assured. So I'll give him a 7.
Yeah, yeah, I'll honestly I'm just going to give him an 8 for this one just because he got a couple shots on him. He was very safe with them. Even
Yeah.
with his feet, he wasn't perfect as always. He does what he does, but he wasn't bad. I'm gonna give him an 8. There's nothing to criticize about Turner in this game.
But his problems with his feet didn't cost us anything. Like, they
No,
didn't do
nothing.
anything to the game
No.
necessarily, and he was mostly safe with his passes, which is fine. This is for you. Tactical dog to sign a one-time switch to the USA. He celebrated by pooping in Tak's bed.
He will poop. He does poop sometimes very badly.
Brooks Lennon, the right back. How do you rate him?
The thing is, I don't think he performed below what he is, right? So it's not
Right.
really his
Right.
fault. I'm gonna give Brooks Lennon a 4. I'm not gonna be overly harsh on him. I think he was poor throughout the game. I think he
Yeah.
was poor, but I'm just gonna give
Ineffective.
him a. I'm just gonna be say below average. I saw a lot of effort from him. I saw him try. He even tried to go on one-on-one situation, just couldn't beat the defender. I'm gonna give him a 4, below average.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 3. I just didn't think against Bosnia's C team that's playing with 10 men, you have to be better than that. Again, you can say it's not his fault, but he's the guy on the
Yeah.
field, so he's the guy I have to rate. So I'm going to give him a 3. Walker Zimmerman. I thought Walker Zimmerman was one of the better players today. Did everything you could have asked of him defensively, won everything in the air, was pretty decent with his distribution, maybe not incisive with his distribution, but I'll give him a 7.
Since I gave Turner an 8, I gotta go with Zimmerman also with an 8. He did everything. Every time he was challenged, even though second half he wasn't as much, he did his job. So 8 to Walker Zimmerman.
Yeah. Start with Henry Kessler.
So wasn't as tested, right? Wasn't very tested, but when he was, he looked a little sloppy. Looked like Henry Kessler. I'm gonna give him
Looked
a 5,
shaky. Yeah,
average,
5.
because I can't blame him for anything.
Yeah, very average. George Bello. I'm going to give George Bello a straight up 3. Like, terrible performance from him. Lost the ball unnecessarily, offered very little in the attack, wasn't able to be incisive or penetrating. Not a good shift from George Bello.
I'm giving him a 3 as well because I gave Brooks a 4. I actually thought he was worse than Brooks Lennon today. So I'll give him a 3.
All right, let's move to Johnny Cardoso into midfield. Johnny, like you said, faded a little bit in that second half. I'm going to give him a 5 because although he looked comfortable on the ball, he didn't really affect the game in a major way. And although I believe to a degree that wasn't his fault just because of the lack of movement and guys who he could play with, he didn't really impact. He didn't stand out in an obvious way. And I think against Bosnia's C team with 10 men, he should have. So I'm going to give him a 5, but no better.
I'm gonna give him a 5, just like I gave Kessler too. Was fine at times, poor at times, average game from Johnny. And again, he should have stood out today. That's what he should have done. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I'm gonna give him a 5.
Okay. Let's move further forward into our favorites. Christian Roldan. I'm going to give Roldan a 3. No, 2. Actually, no, that's harsh. I'll stick with 3. I'll stick with 3 for Roldan. He had a few half decent moments. He found Jordan Morris with a decent ball. But other than that, his touches were poor. His passes were largely not very incisive, very safe. When he tried to be incisive, he didn't, couldn't find the target, couldn't break lines with his passing. Didn't offer much defensively either. 3 for Roldan for me.
3, same as Bello, same that I gave to Bello. I still remember that one touch from in the midfield, wide
Oh
open,
my
no one near
God.
him,
No one near him, and he gives it away.
Yeah, and it happened more than once. That's just the one that's the most memorable in my mind right now. So I'm giving him a 3 as well, same as Bello. Yeah, 2 would be a little too harsh. He wasn't.
2 would be a little too harsh, yeah.
Unless you add the context of who was the opponent, then.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm struggling. I'm trying to think about, like, against Bosnia's C team, you look that poor. I feel like giving him a 2, but I'll stick with 3 for now. I'm going to give Acosta a 3 too. Acosta was no better. Now, to be fair to Acosta, he was playing as a dual 8. Why Greg is obsessed with playing him as an attacking midfielder when he literally offers us nothing in the attack, I don't know. But if that's the role you're asked to play and you do it poorly, then I still have to judge you on that performance. So I'm giving him a 3.
I'm going the same with Acosta. I could give him a 3 or 4. It doesn't matter. He didn't do much besides draw the red card, I guess. He didn't really draw it. He was kind of like
draw it. It was more a poor tackle.
It was a poor tackle. Yeah, I'm going to give him a 3.
Also, his set pieces were awful. Like, he was on set pieces terrible all night. Terrible.
Crosses too. Every time he got one, it was
crosses. All of them. It was just.
It looked just regular Acosta. So
yeah. All right, Jordan Morris. You start on Morris.
So first half behind Zimmerman and Turner, I guess, because Turner did fine. He was our best player there, especially on offense, right? He was the one trying to get something, got some dangerous crosses. Probably should have scored that header, but still was there, was work. I'm going to give Morris a 6 for this one. Above average performance. He gassed out in the second half. It was quite clear because he was much more alive in the first. I'm going to give him a 6.
Yeah, I'll give him a 7 just because he was our most threatening player in the attack in the whole game, which, again, isn't saying much against that team for sure, but also, I mean, Morris, I'm going to take, he hasn't played 90 minutes in over a year, so I'll take that into account. I'll give him a 6.5, I guess. 6.5. Jesus Ferreira, I'm going to give him a 4. Pretty anonymous for most of this game.
Mm-hmm.
Again, being played out of position probably didn't help him. I don't think he's a winger, but still, he didn't offer anything. Again, honestly, you should be able to play out of position against Bosnia. Like, against Bosnia's C team with 10 men, you have to be able to play out of position and still look good, So 4 for Jesus Ferreira for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little more harsh on him. I'm going to give him a 3, even though I know he's playing out of position. But again, it was Bosnia's B or C team. Yeah. And I think his performance was about the same level as 2 players I criticized before. So I got to keep it consistent on. I think he was about the same level as Bello and Roldan, Ferreira. So I'm giving him a 3.
How do you rate Ricardo Pepi?
3. Same thing as them. It wasn't a good performance. Missed the goal that he should have scored. That goal, absolutely, you have to score those. Should have just hit it with his lefty, right? He tried to hit it with his right foot and missed it. And besides that, he didn't really offer much.
Let's answer this question, actually, and I want you to answer this question for me. Mm-hmm. Pepi has sucked for several games now and shouldn't be a guaranteed starter. Who do you want to start? And I'd love to hear who you think should start, because 3 goals, 3 assists, plus 1 more goal involvement in the last 6 games. So in World Cup qualifier. So who else should start? Tell me. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I don't think also he sucked the other games in World Cup qualifying. He just didn't score. He wasn't awful in any of those games.
People don't understand, I think.
He was
heavily involved in many goals.
Today he was bad. Yeah, I'll give you guys that. He was bad today, but But then again, we've also talked about he's 18 and probably a lot is going through his mind right now. And I don't know who are we going to start? Sargent is struggling still.
Yeah,
Zardes, uh, DK. We know the problems DK has.
yeah,
Hoppy hasn't been playing and apparently is injured. Maybe is injured. We don't know. Who
yeah.
are we going to play?
That's the problem. We don't have anybody who
Are
can
we
play.
going to Thomas Tuchel our way and put Pulisic as a center forward?
No, please, no, please. Okay. So now to the subs. The first subs that came on were Jackson Yule. I'm going to give him a 3, just like everybody else. Did nothing. Nothing. Sideways passing at best. The occasional non-adventurous forward pass. That's it.
I'm gonna be less harsh on him. As weird as that, I'm gonna give him a 4 because he didn't do anything. And by anything, I mean nothing good, nothing bad. Just like he did nothing. He was just
But
like
he shouldn't
nothing.
even be on the field.
Yeah, that's on Greg though. That's gonna go
That's
towards
true.
Greg's rating.
That's
So
true.
I'm gonna give Jackson a 4.
I'm going to stick with a 3 for
Yeah,
Jackson because I thought he was a downgrade from Johnny Cardoso. So
yeah.
next up was Zardes, who came out at the same time
Mhm.
and was equally useless. I don't think, I mean, he had a decent pass to Gomez, Jonathan Gomez, for the goal. But other than that, couldn't hold up the ball, couldn't connect passes, wasn't stretching the back line. 3. I'm going to give Zardes a 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Zardes with a 4. I thought he was just Zardes, clumsy, all over the place, hitting people, falling on the floor. And then he got that pass. The thing is, can we talk about one thing? That pass that he gave to Gomez, can we stop giving credit for actions like that?
Sure.
Like, what was that? Like, why are we giving
It
credit
was
to
a
that pass?
4-yard pass with nobody in front of him. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's because people are gonna bring that up and say, no, he gave the pass to Gomez that led to the shot that was the goal. It's like that wasn't a complicated pass. It was a pass
No.
that it's the minimum you would expect from a professional soccer player. I'm giving him a 4. He was just Zardes all over the place, and that's it.
Yeah. Um, Reynolds was the other one who came on at the same time for the last 30 minutes. I don't think that Reynolds was a upgrade on Brooks Lennon in terms of his combination play, but I also don't think he had anybody to combine with, to be honest.
Had
Like
one nice overlap moment that
he
led
had
to
a
a
good
dangerous
overlap
goal.
moment, and he did put the cross in, a pretty good cross in that led to the goal. So I'll give him a 5, but I can't give him better than that.
Yeah, a little bit better than Brooksland. I think I gave Brooksland a 4, I believe. I'll give him a 5.
The thing is, he's 4 years younger than Brooks Lennon. This is why we wanted to see him, because even though we know it might not be a dramatic upgrade from Lennon right now, we believe that long term he actually has a higher ceiling. So that's kind of why we wanted to see him for more time.
And he's not playing, so we probably saw the worst of him,
Yeah,
right? Not informed. That's
this
the
is a
worst
guy who
of him.
hasn't played for 6 months. You
Yeah.
know, let's talk about the other subs. We saw it was what's his name? Cole Bassett came on and
And Gomez.
Gomez, right? No, there was one
No,
more.
Bassett came in with those guys, and Gomez came in late.
But there was one more because there was those 3, Bassett, Gomez, and there was one more.
Let me
Who else
see
came
here.
on?
Let me see here against Bosnia, and I'll give you the list. So, the subs for the U.S. men's national team. The first subs were Zardes. We did that. Brian Reynolds and Jackson Yule. Then after that, the subs that happened were Cole Bassett for Jordan Morris and Cade Cowell for Jesus Ferreira.
Cade Cowell. I knew it. Yeah, I mean, Cade Cowell. So Cade Cowell and Cole Bassett came on together in the last 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think either of them really had an impact on the game, apart from Cole Bassett with the tap in. I would give them both a 5. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give Cowell a 5 because I don't think he was terrible, but I don't think he majorly impacted the game. I still think he struggles technically. Cole Bassett in the same way, except he scored the winning goal. So I'll bump him up to a 6 for that.
Yeah, I remember Cade Cowell in the game, a lot of effort, but not much has happened. Also, limited minutes, right? He was in for roughly
It's
10
hard,
minutes.
15
Yeah,
minutes. You know, it's like
it was
same with
last.
Gomez. How do you rate a guy who comes on for 6 minutes, even though he
Yeah,
got the assist pretty much on the goal? You know,
Cole Bassett gets a little bit of a boost. I mean, even though it was a tap in, he was there, he scored,
yeah,
and that's it. And then Jonathan Gomez too. You can't really rate him. He had that shot.
that's all he did. That's all he had time to do in his
Yeah,
pity minutes.
yeah. So
In his
there's
pity
not
minutes.
much to rate for them, but Bassett deserves credit for scoring,
Yeah.
and Jonathan Gomez for shooting that ball.
Yeah,
Galatego.
I'll give, if we're gonna rate him, I'll give him a 7 for his goal contribution. 6 minutes with only 6 minutes to go, so I'll give him that. Greg Berhalter, to the end of 2021, the greatest American coach that's ever lived. He's had some nice moments this last year, and a lot of really not good ones. We also have this game that we're talking about, just this game. On this game, I can't give him more than a 2. I'm sorry. The continued use of the same old mediocre players who never perform, the unwillingness to play Caden Clark, Jonathan Gomez for any decent length of time. What's his name? Taylor Booth, Justin Che. Not enough time for Brian Reynolds, in my opinion, or even, Cole Bassett. It's just the same old from him. He still keeps believing in these guys no matter what they do. I'm giving him a 2.
I'm gonna give him a 1. I don't think I've ever given a 0. Here's the
I
reason
gave him a
why
1
I'm
after
giving.
Panama.
I did. Okay, so I'm giving a 1 again because this is how I'm looking into this. What did we gain from this friendly in this camp? What did we gain?
Zippo.
Nothing.
If
Yeah.
anything, it hurt us because we sent the message loud and clear to Jonathan Gomez that we don't value him.
That he's a small guy. He
That
got
he's
called.
not
He got
athletic
called a
enough,
small guy.
and we prefer the terrible George Bello over him right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's the message. And I'm sorry, but if Jonathan Gomez does switch to Mexico, I do think we have to look at this game and say we had an opportunity to start him and say we believe in you and to give him I believe in you minutes, but instead we gave him pity minutes. And I believe that impacts a player's thinking. We saw that with David Ochoa, for example.
And back to the 1. So that was the first thing out of the camp, not just the game, the camp. What did we gain out of it? So Jonathan Gomez, it might have not been positive. We're speculating. We didn't talk to him, so we don't know, but it didn't look positive. Looking from just another human perspective, right? We wouldn't be happy. Caden Clark, too. Greg Berhalter said in the press conference yesterday, I believe, or earlier today, that I think it was yesterday, that Caden Clark is a player that goes to the box, right, and makes things happen. What did we miss today? We missed a player that gets in that final third and makes things happen. That's what we were missing.
But
right?
Caden Clark doesn't understand the system, TM.
system.
Don't forget to say TM because we don't want to get copyright strikes for saying the system without TM. That's Greg's system.
And then, not just that, Taylor Booth, that was very much complimented by many players and Greg Berhalter in camp, didn't play at all because he doesn't understand the system. According to Roldan said it, that Taylor Booth still has to learn the system. And then last but not least,
I think Roldan needs to learn the system from Taylor Booth.
That was the final thing I was going to say is let's talk about the system. What is the system? Right? Because this is what Greg does. I don't have the board here and Pete doesn't have the board today. He passes it to the 6. The 6 looks for the fullback. The fullback goes long on the flank and tries a cross. Otherwise, what he does is he resets the play. That is the system. That is literally the system. So any good scouting team figures that out, and Bosnia figured it out in the second half. Did you notice how we couldn't get dangerous through the flanks? That is the reason. They figured it out. It's like that's the only play the United States has. So this is the system that Greg has. You guys know the system right now. It's center back to the 6, 6 to the fullback. Fullback goes long or restarts the play. That is the system. That is the overly complicated system
that everybody has to learn, and you cannot learn it in one camp. You must take many years to learn it because it is so complex.
Me, an idiot on YouTube, can't understand it. But Caden Clark, a professional soccer player that went through the Barca Academy, the Leipzig once, can't understand that. Taylor Booth, that trains with Bayern every day. He can't understand.
They can't understand it. They need to spend more time in Nashville.
And I challenge anyone to prove that the system is anything besides that. I challenge anyone to prove it. It's in every game, every single roster, different players. They play the same exact way.
Yep. And just to double down on that, if these guys have to learn the system, are we assuming that the guys who continue to play and get minutes almost despite performance have learned the system? Because they haven't demonstrated to me that they're able to execute this system effectively. So either the system itself is flawed, in which case nobody should be expected to learn it, or the guys who are supposedly there to teach the system, TM, aren't able to do it themselves, and are just there to teach it, that makes no sense to me. Absolutely no sense to me.
He had 2 weeks with this team, by the way, guys. So there's no excuses. He had 2 weeks.
There is
And
not.
that is pretty much a preseason that he had with this team. And a lot of the players in this camp have already been in camp, so they should have known the system by
Yeah.
now.
Roldan has been in camp for 3 years.
Well, but if we talk, Henry Kessler has been there, Zimmerman has been there, Bello has
Acosta,
been there, Acosta has been there, Roldan has been there,
Zardes,
Pepi has been there, Zardes has been there, Morris has been there in
Ferreira.
2019 at least. Ferreira has been there, Johnny Cardoso has been there. There's look, I'm sorry, there's no excuses. I don't care what the Greg apologists say anymore. This is his system. It's very basic. He's not the American Pep Guardiola, and it's crap. And it's not effective. He can
And it
only attack.
only looks good when we have our best players playing it. And it's not even because of the quote unquote system. It's because they are talented players who will literally drive up the field with the ball at their feet to create something. All right. Football King says, I hope Jogo does choose Mexico. We need him. Sorry, guys. Well, we need him too. So we'll find out who he chooses, Football Kings. But thank you for the super chat. And I will be, if you do win him, I wish you the best of luck. Mexico does need him. San Fran, Berhalter needs to be fired after the World Cup 2022. Let's see what happens in 2022. I tend to agree with you. I think we can only go so far with Greg Berhalter. I think this group of players has a ceiling under Greg Berhalter, and I hope we can get somebody better for 2026. But guys, this is our last live stream, or at least our last post-game stream.
Can I give everyone one update real quick on
Yeah.
one thing before? So the dual national Canadian American that I interviewed, Luca Cogliosho, that plays for the Espanol U19s. He was invited for the Canadian men's national team U20 camp in January, and apparently he will attend it. He was also invited for the American one, but the American one is late in the month. Going to be late in the month. We're going to have a U20 camp late in January. He won't go. He's not going to be released by his club. So that is, we don't know how good the kid will be. He's definitely playing on a good academy in a good league, and that's just not a good sign. That's just the update.
Yeah. So, guys, last stream or post-game stream, I think how many of these post-game streams have we done in 2021? A lot. We did it for the friendly at the beginning of the year. We did
Olympic
it for
qualifying.
So Olympic qualifying was 5 games, and we had 2 friendlies in March.
No, 4 games, right? We lost in the semis. 4 games.
Oh yeah, 4 games and 2 friendlies in March. We also had the friendly in Jan, right? That's 7. Okay. Follow me so far? 2 Nations League games. That's 9. Plus the Costa Rica friendly. That's 10. Okay. Plus 6 games in Gold Cup. That's 16. Plus 8 games in
World Cup qualifying.
World Cup qualifying takes us to 24. Plus
and now 25.
3 Revelations Cup streams.
Oh yeah. No, we did 2 only. We didn't do the Mexico one.
Oh, that's right. 2. So that takes us to 26. And then this one is 27. This doesn't include domestic club games, but for the national team stuff. It's been fun, guys. Thank you for hanging with us in 2021. This is the community that I've always wanted to have around the national team. I've wanted to have people to watch soccer with, to talk about soccer with. You guys are amazing. Tack, thanks so much for doing this. Real quick update from me, guys. I'm going to take a little break for the holidays from YouTube. I'm probably not going to do any videos until the new year. It's been a year and a half of 2 or 3 videos a week. I need to take a breather. I need to take some time off. So I am just you won't see anything on YouTube until the new year. So just letting you know now, I'm not dead. I haven't fallen off a cliff. I haven't quit YouTube. I'm just taking a little bit of a break because I need it. Tack, I don't know if you are you?
Yeah, I will be as well. I will be doing the Americans Abroad on Monday, obviously. But this will be the last one of the year, this Monday. 1, for me to take a break. 2, a bunch of the leagues abroad are going to be in break as well. And the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a live stream. If you want to participate, you're welcome to come as well. It's going to be just to have fun. I'm going to bring Brett and Derek from Straight Red Card.
Oh, fun.
We're going to do a little bit of a USMNT Dundee Awards from The Office.
Okay, that sounds fun. What day is it?
We'll confirm with you. I'll let you know. And if you want to show up as well, we're just going to be hanging out. We're going to make up some silly awards and some serious awards. And we're just going to.
That sounds dope. I'll do that. I will also maybe do one live hangout before the end of the new year, like after Christmas. But until Christmas, for sure, I'm not going to do anything.
Maybe do a yearly recap, just going through again real quickly, a live stream.
Maybe. We'll see.
I need want to talk about Greg or take a break. We have 2022
2022 is going to be
is a big year.
nonstop, guys. It's going to be a huge year from the beginning to the end. Everything is about Qatar. From here on out, guys, it's Qatar, Qatar, Qatar. That's all everything is going to be about. Hopefully we qualify. I think we will. For all of your support, guys, for hanging out with us, for your super chats, for those who are members of our channels, Patreons, for everybody who bought merch, who interacts with us, sends us messages on Twitter. Thank you. It's been a blast. You guys have been dope. And there's a lot to look forward to. No tack. It's an exciting time to be an American soccer fan, despite the game that we just saw. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a very happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Talk to you guys soon.